Hi, welcome everyone, both in-house and on our recording. I'm Ethan David. I'm a global career pair and a double major in film, media and theatre. And welcome to our panel on freelancing in the UAE. There are three wonderful panelists here who are ready to talk about their experiences. So to start it off, can you just give a brief introduction and...
Cool. Hi guys, my name is Waleed. I'm a photographer. That's my intro.
You're a freelancer.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Sheikha and this is Diana. We're both co-founders at Abjad Design studio, and our work mainly focuses on developing anything visual, so graphic design, web design, publications. We focus a lot on arts and culture in our projects, and that's basically it, very briefly.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, yeah, I mean, she already introduced us, but as she mentioned, we do branding. We work a lot with copywriters on content, for example. It's pretty diverse, I would say. Digital, we do websites and animation, videos. We do work with photographers as well, so yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was wondering if we could just start off by talking about what you think some of the benefits and the challenges are of freelancing in your experience.
Okay. Benefits. I think is this on? Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. I think the benefits generally outweigh the challenges. I would say you have a lot more control over what products to take and what products not to take if you've got enough work coming your way. Obviously in the beginning it's a challenge to get enough work coming your way for you to be able to choose what to take and what not to take. But at the end it's more of a business and less of an art when you're a freelancer. And that might not sit well with a lot of the artists around. So it's just sort of a mindset you gotta put yourself in to say, okay, this is my livelihood now. It's not just about, trying to produce, art that says something or means something. It's more about, putting food on the table and getting work coming in on a regular basis.
So the question again?
What benefits and challenges of freelancing that you've experienced?
I'll talk about myself when I was a freelancer, and then I'll talk about us as Abjad Design and working with freelancers. Freelancing, okay, you do think freedom, but there's a lot of restrictions, or not restrictions, kind of frustrations that you have no control over your time, I remember. So it's like you're all the time working. What's nice about having a job, for example, you just you do work from a specific time to a specific time. I'm just going to discuss the challenges and the nice thing about freelancing, I would say, is actually working with different clients and the freedom of trying different projects, meeting different people. But you also need to put the hat of socializing and networking. You should not expect you just sitting somewhere and then expecting people to know about you. You need to go meet, you need to network, you need to introduce yourself. You might have to do a website, etc. The only challenge, I would say, one of the challenges is just the follow-up of the financial. So if you're a registered freelancer, I would say it's really good, because then you guarantee that it's legal, you're getting the payment on time, you have all the right, all those, because you're managing your own self. It's not like you have an accountant, so you need to follow up the financials. So this is the only. But as Abjad, we do work a lot with freelancers. I would say we work with, as mentioned, copywriters a lot, English and Arabic, to create brand stories. We do work with graphic designers, freelancers. We really like working with freelancers. I mean, we do have in-house designers, but we still have a directory of freelancers that we work with. It's just there's so many talented designers and artists and copywriters, photographers, videographers. There's a lot of really good talent out there that we can work with, and plus per project, of course, because I might hire a copywriter, but I don't have work all the time for them. You know what I mean? So it's always good. And then the usual thing, they just send us the code and etc. And it's a either it's a short-term project or a long-term project. So there's a lot into it actually. It is good, but at the same time there's some challenges from its freelancing maybe point of view. It's just maybe different reasons, I would say.
Great. As a kind of follow-up to that, can you can you talk a little bit about the process that you would get involved in when taking a job to its completion, and what that looks like specifically in the UAE?
I don't think it's specific to the UAE. I think it's just it's just regular work anywhere in the world, I would say. If you got your material out there and you're contactable and someone can see your work, they'll see your work. Or if you go out and network, go out to different parties or events or coffee shops that are closer to advertising agencies, let's say, and just mingle and meet people there. And that's when people start to know about you, and when something happens, when they need something, or there's an event happening, or there's a new product launch or something, they're like, oh, I remember there's the one photographer that I met at so and so place. And you get contacted, talk about your if you're interested to do the work or not, talk about your pricing, get your paperwork right, and go shoot, execute, hand in payments, hand in photos, and handle payments after. Does that work?
Yes, absolutely.
Cool.
Do you have anything to add?
Not really, actually, because it's quite a similar process, I would say. Thinking of when we used to freelance before opening our own design studio, there's a lot of self-management involved, in the process, and and again, as Diana mentioned earlier, you're the one who has to sort of promote yourself. You have to, mingle with clients, try to get jobs, and do the actual work at the same time.
And the good thing now, you have a lot of platforms, online platforms that can help support freelancers if you're a person who doesn't like to network, because a lot of personalities differ, honestly, and it really requires a lot of socializing, etc. But then, of course, for artists or designers, there's Behance. For interior designers, for interior or architects or graphic designers, there's Behance, and then you have Odesk for Sorry?
Upwork.
It's Upwork, there's Upwork, but there are platforms that can help you promote your own, where you can put your credentials, put your profile, your rate card, your rate per hour. So there are different ways, and
Could you give any insight into what it looks like from the hiring perspective, what you look for in the artists you're hiring?
Yeah, so basically it depends on the project first, and also we look for freelancers who sort of go with the style of our studio, so it doesn't look too odd, you know what I mean? And for example, let's say if I'm looking for if a project requires something that looks like an etching, like an illustration that looks like an etching, so I would literally have to look for a freelancer who's really good at that specific talent, you know what I mean? So yeah, it depends on the portfolio and also on the personality as well. Sometimes you would work with a freelancer who's so talented, but they wouldn't deliver on time, so we would not prefer to work with them, for example, again. And a lot of the freelancers we work with are people who previously interned with us. So what's good is that we sort of know each other, and they've been kind of mentored by us, you know, and we it just makes things easier. So yeah.
Yeah, even if they entered or they also worked with us, because we do have, as I mentioned, for example, we had cases where there were designers who joined us from other different countries, and they've stayed with us for a year and a half or something like that, but then they went back home and we still work with them. So what's nice about freelancing is, and nowadays also a lot of studios, they ask for freelancers to work from their space. So you come for like a 3 months, you work from their office, and then so it's a short-term freelance contract, even if it's from the actual office, right?
Just to add to that, I think what the ladies are trying to say is people work, well, they work, and most people work with people they like. There's a lot of talented people out there. Unfortunately, it's harsh to hear, but as artists, there's a lot of us around, and we all kind of do the same thing. And yes, you have to be good at what you do, but so is everybody else, right? So what differentiates you, not your art, but you as a person, is what whoever's hiring you would be looking for. So you just got to be likable, easy to work with, deliver on time, show up on time, dress well, smell good. So it's those things that I think put you above everybody else who's as talented as you.
And another thing I'd like to mention, actually, regardless if you're a designer or whatever major you are, it's always good to specialize, I would say. And specializing in something, finding your niche, finding what you're good at, and putting passion into it, people actually they can tell. Like, for example, copywriters, when we work with copywriters, for example, we have them under different categories, because you have people who are like copywriters who are specialized in, for example, more corporate, and then you have copywriters who are more into storytelling, or they're a bit more, they write for fashion, for example, or you have copywriters who do specific things. So it's under the umbrella of your major, it's good to find a niche that you would like to venture into, because people are, nowadays, they do look at specific, as Sheikha mentioned, like when we look for illustrators, there's so many illustrators, but then who does etching? Not a lot of people. So I would say always find your niche, and yeah.
But at what point in your freelancing career do you recommend to specialize? Because I assume that at the beginning you really don't have a choice.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
want
of
to
course.
try everything.
Yes, of course. At the beginning, when you're just like fresh out from university, you should try everything. And the more experience you get, that's when you'll sort of try to understand yourself and what you're best at.
So I kind of picked up the mic to disagree with you a little. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I think specializing is based on the size of your market. In a market like New York, for example, it's a huge market, and if you specialize in, it's one little thing, as my dad likes to say, the wing of a fly, then yeah, there's a market for that. There's a lot of people that will want that specific niche. There's enough of them there to hire you, that you do this one little specific thing that's your niche. But in a market like, for example, Abu Dhabi, that's not the case. You will not survive with that if you specialize and you only do that thing. So my advice is depending on where you are in the world geographically, the size of your market, that dictates how much to specialize, and if you should specialize at all. So for example, you asked me earlier, what kind of photography do you do? Do you remember what my answer?
Mm-hmm. You said everything, and anything that puts money on the table.
Exactly.
On the table, yeah.
Anything that pays money. We live here in Abu Dhabi, and I work between Abu Dhabi and Dubai. There's not enough work going around for me to specialize in one thing. So if you look at my portfolio, I've got cars, portraits, corporate, food, fashion. It's all there, and it's all on par with my peers out there that are specialized in that. So it just depends on your market and where you want to make a living.
But maybe at some point in your life, after several years of experience, you might realize that you just want to do portraits.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
At some point.
Yeah, wanting to do it is one
I know
thing.
it's one thing,
but
having.
Yeah,
Yes.
but the amount of work out there that's available to sustain you, it's a reality check sometimes.
Yeah.
No, it's true.
So Waleed, you're recently established now in UAE. People know your name, and you have a lot of work coming in.
Sorry?
You have a reasonable
Yes,
amount
yeah.
of For those of us who are just starting out, what strategies would you suggest, or thinking back to your early years about ensuring that you get enough work on the table to pay your bills?
I think wherever you are in your career, if you move to a new city, you have to start again from scratch. So regardless of if I'm talking to me just now or me, 7 years ago, then it's the same thing. It's go and start from scratch. Be humble enough to start from scratch, and the word freelance. It kind of gives me, rubs me the wrong way because it has the word free in it, and we don't like that.
You're not
word.
really free.
Yeah.
Like, you're not as free as you think.
Yeah, exactly. So but in the beginning, in the beginning of your career, you're going to be doing a lot of free stuff, and a lot of stuff to get your name out there, and you'll get contacted by a lot of people trying to get you to do free work, versus you going out to produce some stuff for free to put out to the world. There's a significant difference, and I hope once you start to get those inquiries, to not be fooled into it. So just be careful what free work you do, and for who you do it, because it's almost never gonna come back to you. But the work you do for free for yourself will come back to you. So for example, when I first started, I really wanted to get into the arts and music scene. So I would go to any of the concerts or any of the live performances just by myself. Nobody's asked me to do it, and go and shoot as many of the artists as possible, post that online, tag everybody, send it to the artists and stuff like that, and then that kind of got my name out there. But then as soon as you start being contacted to do that, that's when you're okay, hold on, this is my price, I can start making money there. So there's that transition period where you're going to be contacted to do stuff for free because you've been doing it for free, and it's a very difficult sort of mental, emotional switch that you need to make. That, okay, hold on, now's the time to start charging these people money. Make sense? Go ahead.
How did you decide your price? Because that's also difficult for a lot of
Yeah.
artists.
Yeah, that's a really, really long question. How much time you got? Okay, to make it easier, I've got a video on my Instagram stories, on my Instagram IGTV, and it shows you how to think about pricing yourself. What goes into the thought process, and how to break it down and come out with a price. But ultimately, the market defines your price as well. But it's a difficult sort of marriage between where you're at just now and what the market values you, because you can be really, really talented at what you do, but not valuable to the market, and vice versa. You can be very valuable to the market, but not very talented at what you do. Just as an example, if we look at, let's say, the guy that is at any of the tourist attractions, right? Some random guy at the pyramids or Burj Khalifa or something has a camera, takes a shot, prints it for you, and sells it to you for $15, $20, $30, right? Even though in probably your eyes or my eyes that might not require so much talent, but he's very valuable because he's in a specific spot at a specific time where you need him. So there's that difference between talent and value, and I think it's important to know how valuable you are to the market and price yourself there. Does that make sense? Cool.
I guess you're all here from different majors, I would assume. I mean, we are artists and we're designers, but we need to take into consideration that different fields are on different rates, I would assume, and you would need to ask around when you graduate, and if you decide to freelance, you need to talk to people, ask them, and of course, if you get a full-time job and you decide after the full-time job to freelance after, then you would almost know what's the rate card, like what's the hourly rate. Like I remember when I had to freelance, I had to ask, and of course, as per the salary that I'll be getting, I would just calculate. So automatically, things would start making sense when I start calculating the salary I would make as a fresh graduate or as junior. Unfortunately, we don't have documentations here. We don't have books that could tell us. In States, for example, I remember when me and Sheikha had to start Abjad, we got a publication from the States that would tell you about how to start your own graphic design company, what are the rates, what are the legal terms to use, how to write your contracts, etc. But I'm not sure if this is around here, but you might have to do a lot of homework yourself, I would say.
And what would you suggest to do when you come across a job that you start and the terms that they gave you at the beginning is not what the job turned out to be?
That happens about 99% of the time, and that's fine. So, what you usually do is, in the beginning, whatever the terms are, you price for that, plus what you think is going to change, which always changes. So it's either what usually changes for me as a photographer is, number of hours could change, number of images could change, the usage of images could change, the how detailed the edits could change. So yeah, you code yourself however they wanted it to be, and then you've got, okay, if extra hours are this much and extra images are this much, and you just have that there from the beginning, and it happens all the time, every single time. Yeah.
So I'll open up the questions in a bit, but before I do you what's the one thing that you think you would suggest to students who are either thinking about freelancing or are about to move into a freelancing life?
I would honestly suggest and advise not to jump directly to freelance. I would say just at least a couple of years of full-time, or just for you to know, to get an understanding, or else if you really would like to freelance, or internships of course, if you would like to freelance, as Waleed said, it will be a pool of exploration, so you need to try different things, get an understanding. And I would suggest definitely a website. You need to work on your profile. As a company owner, if I look at the freelance who has a strong profile, not as strong, but at least you've worked on your image, you've created the website, you have a business card, you are holding yourself like in a very presentable way, this by itself makes a difference. If you are an artist or you're etc. in any major, you need to work on your identity, your brand. You need to, before you even freelance, ask yourself, how do you want to present yourself? Because it all plays a big role of how people see you. So it's totally up to you. There's, from the time I graduated personally, freelance was a bit of a scary thing to do. Like I remember when I told my dad, I've worked for like a year and a half, and then I told my dad, I want to freelance, and he looked at me and it's like, freelance? Like this before it was a bit, it's not a very comfortable thing to do. But nowadays, I've noticed a lot of fresh graduates, they're just freelancing directly. They're not even, for them, the idea of a full-time is not there. So it seems that everything has changed and freelance is looked at as a full-time. I don't know. It all depends on the person, I guess. Yeah. It's like, what would be the thing that you would advise?
Yeah, I mean, other than what Diana mentioned, I would also suggest, I think if you don't want to get a full-time job, maybe start with an internship. That's quite good, just to get a taste of the real world, but not really short, like maybe, let's say, 6 months, and also don't do anything for free. You can price reasonably, but don't accept free jobs. I wouldn't suggest that.
Okay. Also, how much time do we got?
We have 15 minutes.
Okay. So I think being a, if you move away from the word freelancer, you're a business owner when you step into this world. You're either employed or a business owner, and the setup you're looking for is the business owner setup. Now, your craft is about maybe 20-25% of it. the other 80-75% is you growing as a person, and as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, which means if you were a company, you've got all these different divisions of, sales, marketing, accounting, research and development, HR, all these departments with 5-10 people in each department. But you've got to be all those departments in your head. So that level of exposure to the world and exposure to business doesn't come from your bedroom behind a laptop. It doesn't happen. So going out to the world and interning or taking a full-time position at some sort of organization that can give you that exposure to all these different departments, so you can speak accounting terms, so you can speak marketing terms, because that's what you need to do when you're in front of somebody that's about to hire you. And I think that's the hardest part to get your head around, is that it's really not about your art and your craft. That's not how you're going to become successful as a business owner. Yeah.
I'll open up to questions. Does anybody have any specific questions they wish to ask?
Yes.
I'm wondering if, as a freelancer, back when you were a freelancer or whenever you do that work, if you always create the contract and how detailed it is and how open it is to editing later on, if you realize you didn't include something that suddenly has to be included. And especially also, I think another subsection of my question is about rights, especially if you help somebody out for free because you're thinking it's a good way to make a connection, but then they never paid you, so can you double dip, use the same, for example, I'm a music major, use the same piano tune again because somebody else is going to pay you this time, like all these things, like legal rights, contracts.
By the way, these problems, even as company owners, we face those problems. So it's not just freelancers, actually. When we first started our design studio, we kind of had to create contracts, and we've been using them for a while. And then at some point, a few years ago, we decided that we need to actually get a lawyer to create a new contract because we were facing issues with clients, So whether you're a company owner or a freelancer, because when you're a freelancer, you're actually owning your own self, your own company. So it's kind of similar.
But of course, I would say, I don't know, Waleed, you would correct me. Nowadays, you have freelance trade license. I mean, you can, the facilities they have right now at least protects. When I freelanced, I had nothing. Like I would have to call people and ask for my money, and I didn't have a proper contract. So, I mean, that's why honestly one of the reasons I thought starting a design studio would makes more sense. It's legal. It's
people take you seriously.
Yeah, people take you more serious when you are more registered and etc. So I think right now there are like proper options that you can. The thing is, it's a bit expensive. Some people might think it is. Some people. But there are options, I guess, right now.
So I think what you're talking about is a freelance license.
Yeah.
Okay. The like a sole proprietor business ownership license. That's not your question. Your question is about contracts when you work with somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
What about the license, though? That's another thing that I didn't think.
Yeah. So I mean, 2454 are here to talk about how to get yourself a license. But to go back to your contractual issues, two things. First off, unfortunately, sorry to burst your bubble. Contracts mean nothing. It's really nobody's if somebody doesn't honor your written contract, what are you going to do? Realistically, nothing, right? So it's really about your relationship with your client and what you communicated beforehand. It's great to have that in writing for them to go back and, hey, by the way, remember we talked about this, and that's cool. Have it in an email, have it in writing, have it wherever you want to write it. But if they sign something and they go back and don't fulfill that or whatever, there's really not much you can do about it. But having said that, if you want to talk about the law and what protects your rights and stuff, without a contract, without a trade license, you as an artist own everything that you produce. It's under UAE law number 40. And internationally, every country that has anything to do with media has the law, and it's the same law. So you as a person, not an entity, not an artist, whatever, anything you produce, music, photographs, paintings, is yours, unless there's something in writing that transfers that ownership to somebody else. So in your contracts, in your paperwork, in your emails, in your code, for me, what I always have is that whatever I produce is owned by me, and you, Mr. Client, have a license to use this image for X number of years in this region. So usually it's about 1 year in GCC and Levant, for example. And then if you want more, if you wanna print it on billboards across North Africa, it costs you more. So your piece of art, your piece of music, your tune, without any contracts, you don't need to write anything down. If you made it and you have the raw files, it's yours. Nobody can take that away from you. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
So that same thing, does it apply in other parts of the world as well?
Yeah. Everywhere.
I have a sort of related question. What about freelancing from other countries, or getting jobs abroad?
Mhm.
How do you work, get paid?
It doesn't have anything to do with your geographical location. It's a lifestyle and a mindset, right? So, however you.
How do you network and how do you find clients?
Sometimes they find you.
Yeah. They find you, or if you
Instagram.
if
so
you fly
social
down
media.
one day to for example, I've been going back and forth to Egypt, and I make sure I go and meet some people and network every time, and now I'm starting to get some clients that want to do something in the UAE that are from Egypt. Oh, who do we know in the UAE? Oh, Waleed's there. We met him, and so it's kind of like that.
In the end, it depends. Like for artists and designers, sometimes I use Instagram or social media channels or Network, or it all depends on what is it that you are looking for, and you need to find the best ways. What are the best locations or ways, tools for you to build your name and get business? Because it really depends on your career.
شوية. I'd like to put one thing actually, which is really useful for whether you're a designer or any kind of freelancer. I think since you're a freelancer and you have your own time, what's good is that, for example, you might have time for self-development. So you might be interested in taking certain workshops that could develop your skills in certain areas, or you might even yourself be giving workshops to other people, and that way you can even meet people, you can give talks, take part in conferences. So that's also other ways of networking and self-development at the same time. So,
and another thing that we tend to pay attention to, even if they're fresh graduates as a company, is like your internships, for example. Some people do not only one, they do 2, 3, or they work with a university and they've worked with like a department on. It's part of their CV while they were studying is they've worked. So it all plays a big role in actually viewing a fresh graduate if I want to freelance with a fresh graduate or etc. Just looking not only at their portfolio but the fact that they've worked on developing themselves and they've interned and they've done different things before. It all plays a big role, honestly. So if you have time, it's always great to work on your CV or on your experience while you're in university.
Did anybody have any other questions?
My question is for Abjad, right? Yeah. I'm interested to know what inspired you to move from being freelancers to actually setting up your own company, and also whether you worked in corporate. You mentioned you worked in corporate for a year.
Yeah.
What inspired the shift to being a freelancer on your own and then to partnering up together to create the company?
Do you want the long or the short?
The long.
No, I'm joking. I'll just say it very short. Myself and Sheikha, we both studied together in the same school, and we were very passionate about design. we always had this image that it would be so great to start our own design studio one day. Because of course Dubai at that time was saturated with like a lot of advertising, a lot of international branding agencies, but there was not a boutique design studio by local designers, something that's like local. So yeah, we both had our two different experiences. We both worked. I did branding, and Sheikha worked in publication. I did join Sheikha at some point in publication. So it was I did work. We both worked for like 5, 6, 7 years.
No,
What?
I worked for 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
So
yeah.
I probably worked more. I don't know. It's okay. But yeah, so finally, well, I think I was freelancing. I stayed freelancing for like 2 years. And Sheikha was finishing her studies in London and doing her master's. And she had a project in hand. And she's like, hey, I have a project. Do you want us to start a company? And I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So it just happened. We decided to start Abjad because we also wanted, we both had passion in Arabic typography and Arabic calligraphy. And we liked art and culture. And we felt there was not a niche. There wasn't not a niche. It was a nice niche concept to start a design studio that focuses on the cultural project within graphic design. And it happened. It's been 9 years, and one of our clients is New York University, which is great. So yeah, it's you build it and you just feel it if you want to become a freelancer or a full-time. Each person has their own story, I would say.
Do any of you have any final comments before we invite 2454 to talk about the freelance visa? No? Then I'd like to say thank you to Diana, Sheikha, and Waleed. And will any of you be sticking around for a little bit?
We're sticking around.
Yep, so if any of you have any private conversations or wish to follow up, they'll be here for a few minutes. So now if 2454 wants to
Thank you.
talk. Thank you so much.